we need to talk about something very important. There is a quiet way people slowly weaken their own life and nobody talks about it the way they should talk about it. Not because it's rare, but because it doesn't look dramatic enough from the outside. It doesn't look like collapse. It doesn't look like a major failure or like one huge mistake they make and everything changes overnight. It looks so small, even harmless. It looks like letting one thing slide and then another and then this cycle repeat. It looks like tolerating habits you know are not good for you, like accepting routines that drain you and even if you know better, you do less anyway. And because it happens gradually, it becomes easy to miss. That's what it makes it so dangerous. Most people don't lose them all at once. They lose them through what they keep allowing to themselves, what to allow in their lives. That is how standards drop quietly, slowly, almost invisible. And at first, it doesn't even feel serious. You tell yourself, it's just today, just this one time, just a little break, just a small compromise, just one rough phase you're currently in, right? But what you call a small exception today can easily become a tolerated pattern tomorrow. And once something becomes tolerated, it stops feeling wrong with the same intensity it used to be. That's how people normalize things that are weakening them. Not because they don't know. Usually they do know. They feel it, they see it, but they get used to living below what they know they are capable of. That is something that really hurts, even me if I see it on other people, because deep down, all those people know when they are living beneath their potential. You know when your actions don't match your values. You know when your daily behavior is not aligned with the person you say you want to become. You know when you are accepting less from yourself than you used to. Maybe nobody else sees it. Maybe from the outside you still look fine. Maybe you still smile or still function or still get through the day. But internally, there is this quiet awareness that something is off. And when that feeling repeats too often, it starts changing the way you see yourself. That is one of the deepest causes of low standards. It's not just slower progress. It's not just missed opportunities. It is the slow loss of respect for yourself. Because self-respect is not built only through achievements. It's not built only through money or status, attention, physique, success, or how other people perceive you. Real self-respect comes from something much simpler and much deeper. It comes from knowing that when something is important, you act like it is important, that your word still has weight. And when that starts disappearing, you can feel it how you wake up. You can feel it in the way how you speak to yourself or how quickly you avoid things in your life, how hard it becomes to focus on simple tasks, how much more easily it is that your mood controls your action because lowered standards don't just affect what you do, they affect who is in charge. If your standard is that boredom means you reach distraction, then boredom controls your life. Or if that stress gives you permission to fall into chaos, then stress controls you. And after a while, you start living a life that is run by moods, impulses, and comfort instead of values. That is why it matters so much. Standards are not just rules, standards are not just motivational concepts people throw around online to sound disciplined. They determine the level at which you live, they determine what you allow, what you repeat, what you normalize, and what you become. And whether people admit it or not, your life usually reflects the standards you truly accept, not the ones you talk about. Because it's easy to say you want to be disciplined. It's easy to say you want peace or strength or clarity or confidence, consistency. You want growth, you want focus, you want freedom. It's easy to say. Most people say those things, absolutely. But when your daily behavior keeps supporting the opposite, then your real standard is lower than your words. You say you want confidence in your work, in your speaking, in your presence, but you keep breaking your own word. You say you want peace, but you keep entertaining things that disturb your mind. You say you want the progress, but you keep protecting the habits that guarantee stagnation. And then one day you sit there wondering, why do you feel so weak? Why you feel so restless? Why you feel so dissatisfied, right? But weakness often does not come from lack of potential. It comes from misalignment, from wanting one life while repeatedly accepting another. And that split drains people more than hard work could ever do. Because hard work is clean. Hard work can be tiring, but it is clean. Misalignment is exhausting in a different way. It creates tension. It creates this inner noise, this constant discomfort, where one part of you knows better while the other part keeps choosing lower standards. And that ongoing split eats at your energy, not because you are doing the wrong things, but because you know you're doing the wrong things, right? That awareness becomes so heavy. It follows you into the next task and the next day and the next week. It sits in the background of your mind as a quiet disappointment with yourself. And the sad part is that many people live there for years. They don't fully fall apart. They just slowly lower what they accept. A later wake up time becomes normal, more distraction becomes normal, more avoidance, more mental fog, more excuses, more inconsistency becomes normal. And because they adapt to it, they stop treating it like a real problem. They just call it life, right? They call it stress or a phase in their life, chapter. They call it a being human. And of course, yes, being human means to be imperfect. But there's a difference between being imperfect and repeatedly training yourself to live beneath your own standards. One thing that freaks me completely out are those people out there who are saying they want to work until they can retire and then they finally can be free. They can live how they want to be, they can do what they want to do instead of just living right now in the moment. And you they always live underneath their standard. And that freaks me completely out. There's this difference between I want to live in the future or I want to live now. And that difference matters a lot because once something becomes normal to you, it stops creating the same emotional reaction. And that is dangerous. When your standards are low for long enough, what once felt unacceptable starts feeling ordinary. That's how people drift. That's how capable people become average again against their own will. And that's how someone with real potential starts living in a way that no longer reflects that potential at all. Not because those people were never capable, but because they kept lowering the bar until weakness felt familiar. And here's the part that many people misunderstand. When they hear the words standards, they think of becoming cold, robotic, rigid, or extreme. They think of self punishment. They think like, standards mean living in some brutal, joyless way where you are constantly policing yourself. But real standards are not self hatred. Real standards are self respect in action. They are not about becoming cruel to yourself. They are about refusing to keep treating your life casually. They are about saying, I care enough about my future that I will not keep betraying it in small ways every day. I care enough about my peace that I will protect it. I care enough about who I could become that I will stop letting comfort decide everything for me. And that energy is completely different. It is not rigid. It is not fake toughness. It is quiet leadership. The kind that starts inside. Because a person with no standards drifts through life. A person with fake standards performs them for a few days, talks big, posts quotes, and makes dramatic declarations, and then disappears the moment it gets uncomfortable. But a person with real standards becomes stable. And that stability changes everything in their life. Not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because less of life is still up for negotiation. That is one of the biggest hidden benefits of standards. They reduce internal chaos, they reduce decision fatigue, they remove unnecessary debates. Without standards, every moment becomes a decision. Should I get up now? Should I start later or keep my word today? Should I focus or scroll first? Should I train or should I skip my workout today? Should I let this mood ruin the day? Or should I go back to that habit again? All those questions in your head. That constant negotiation drains people. It burns energy before the real work even begins. And then they wonder why everything feels heavy. Of course, it feels heavy. You had so many decisions already in your head before you even started the first thing you wanted to do. But when standards are real, many of those questions are already answered. Should I get up when the alarm goes off? Already decided. Should I keep the promise I made to myself? Already decided. Should discomfort change my principles? Definitely not. And that's already decided with your standards. That is the power. Not the loud power, not the dramatic one, but the quiet, clean power. That kind that makes your life simpler. And simplicity is completely underrated in the current timeline we are living in. Most people are not only tired because life is hard, they are tired because too much in their life is still optional. Every habit is negotiable. Every promise is flexible. Every principle can be adjusted based on mood. Every commitment gets reviewed the second it becomes uncomfortable. That creates a mental chaos. It creates instability. And it creates this feeling that you can never fully trust your own direction because everything can always be changed in the moment. Standards fix that. They create an order, and order creates energy. Now, maybe you already know all of this. Maybe none of this is new to you. I get it, absolutely. I've heard it 100 times too. Maybe you already know exactly where your standards have dropped. But knowing standards and living standards are two completely different things. That's where the real work begins. Not in understanding the concept, but in facing the places where you have been becoming too casual. The places where you started tolerating things you know are beneath you and your standards. The places where you ask for a better life while still protecting the habits that prevent it. That's why the question is not what do I want? The deeper question is what am I currently allowing? Because what you allow, you reinforce. What you tolerate, you train. What you repeat, you become. So if you felt weak lately, if you feel foggy, inconsistent, frustrated, or behind, in some kind of way disappointed of yourself or split inside, it's worth asking you honestly, where have I lowered my standard? Where have I started accepting less than I know I should? Where have I become passive in places that require leadership? Maybe it's your mornings. Maybe you have started opening the day in a weak state and just letting that set in the tone. Maybe it's your focus. Maybe you no longer protect your attention and let distraction eat through your best hours. In my opinion, those are the first 1 to 3 hours in the morning. Maybe it's your body, your physique. Maybe you know exactly what strengthens you, but you keep choosing what weakens you because it feels easier in the moment. Maybe it's your environment. Maybe you keep living in disorder and wondering why your mind feels unsettled. And maybe it's your own word. Maybe you keep promising things to yourself and threatening those promises like they mean nothing. Whatever it is, that is where the shift has to begin. Not with 10 new rules, not with some massive reinvention, not with the fantasy that tomorrow you become perfect. There is no perfection in our human being life. That is not how real changes works. You start by raising one standard. One. Fully, clear, and quietly stand up. Maybe your standard becomes when I wake up, I get up. No negotiation needed. Maybe your standard becomes I do 1 hour of focused work before I touch distraction. Maybe you say something like I train even when I don't feel like it. Or I stop consuming things that weaken my mind. I keep every promise I make to myself, even the small ones. One simple standard, just one. Don't overcomplicate it. Make it as simple as possible. You need this one standard that you truly live, that matters more than 20 ideal versions of yourself that you keep abandoning every few days. Because every real standard strengthens your identity. Every time you honor a standard, you say to yourself, I am someone who follows through. I am someone who can be trusted, who does not collapse every time my emotions change. That message compounds. It builds. It becomes a new internal reference point. And after a while, confidence starts growing in a healthier way. Not because you hyped yourself up, but because your behavior gave you a reason to respect your again. And this is the key to real confidence. People often chase confidence as a feeling, but confidence is often the result of self-observation. You watch yourself showing up. You watch yourself doing what you said you would do. You watch yourself refusing lower patterns or lower standards. And then something in you relaxes. Because now you are no longer trying to convince yourself with words, you have the evidence that you do what you want to do and you say you would do. And evidence is way stronger than motivation. That is also why some people seem so calm and strong in a way that is hard to explain. It's not always a talent or something you're born with. It's not always your genetics. It's also not luck. Often it's just a standard. They repeated long enough that they became a character. Their character. They no longer debate every little thing with themselves. They no longer wait for perfect conditions to act like the person they want to be. They have built an inner baseline, a certain way they carry themselves, a certain level they refuse to fall beneath. And because of that, they feel more solid, more grounded, more themselves. But the opposite is true too, you know? Some people feel weak not because they are fundamentally weak, but because they keep practicing weakness. They keep choosing lower. They keep accepting excuses. They keep reinforcing inconsistency, keep lowering the bar, and then wondering why their life does not rise with them, right? But life rarely rises above the standard you repeatedly accept. That's the truth. Hard? Maybe, but useful. Because it means if your current standards build your current life, then higher standards can build a different one. Not fantasy standards, real ones. Not dramatic statements about changing everything overnight. Real standards like being on time, finishing what you start, protecting your mornings, keeping your space clean, speaking honestly, limiting distractions, moving your body, keeping your word. These things may look small, absolutely, but life is built in small things. Character is built in ordinary moments, not in speeches, not in grand plans, not in those intense late night mental resets where everything feels possible for 15 minutes, right? It is built in the daily moments where you either honor the standard or lower it again. And every time you lower your standard, you feel it completely. When you know, when you lower your standard, you feel it. You might distract yourself directly after it, or you might justify it. You might numb yourself directly after you lowered your standard, but you feel it, and that quiet feeling matters. It is not there to shame you. It is there to wake you up. It is your mind telling you that you are out of alignment. Listen to it. Not to attack yourself, but to correct yourself. Because there is a version of you that becomes available the moment your standards rise. A calmer version, a sharper version, a more trustworthy version. Focused, more stable. A version that does not feel controlled by every impulse and every emotion. A version that becomes dangerous to excuses, weak habits, delays, and wasted potential. Not through force, but through clarity. But that version is not built through wishing. Not through consuming another motivational message and feeling inspired for half of an hour. Not through watching all my YouTube videos out there and liking, but it will tell. It is built through standards, lived consistently, quickly, repeatedly, without needing the world to see it, to see your transformation. That's how people truly rebuild themselves in silence. So if something in you has been feeling heavy lately, maybe the question is not only what goal should I chase now? Maybe the better question is, where have I become too casual with things that matter? Where have I started tolerating what I used to reject? Where have I asked life for the strength while still protecting the patterns that keep me weak? That question right here can change everything if you answer it honestly. Because once you see where the standard dropped, you know where to begin. And once you know where to begin, you do not need a dramatic reset. You do not need a loud announcement or some perfect Monday or some magical new month. You need a decision followed by behavior, then the same decision tomorrow, and again the next day. That is how a life changes, not through intensity, but through your standards. So if this video hits something in you, don't just agree with it and move on. Use it. Pick one area of your life right now where you know you have been tolerating less than you should. Raise the standard there, today, quietly, but immediately right now, and then defend it. Not emotionally, not perfectly, just consistently. Every single day, work towards the thing you want to achieve. Because the life you want will not come from what you occasionally desire. It will come from what you consistently refuse to lower. And if you are serious about becoming stronger, Stay with me for the next few episodes on this YouTube channel, because we are going even deeper into the hidden patterns that keep capable people weak without realizing it. Also, watch those videos up here on the playlist. Feel free to follow me through this journey, and maybe all those videos might be exactly what you need right now to level up your life. Thanks for watching, and I hope I see you in the next one.